Have you ever felt like something in your life is fundamentally broken, but you can't quite name what it is? Like a silent current pulling you back, no matter how hard you try to move forward. Maybe you've tried changing habits, environments, even people, but somehow you still end up stuck in the same destructive patterns. You repeat the same mistakes, face the same internal battles, feel the same emptiness after every false victory. Perhaps it's that inner voice that whispers just loud enough to make you quit right before a breakthrough, or the sudden burst of anger that erupts in moments that, looking back, weren't even that serious. It might be the envy you don't want to admit, but feel anyway, when someone achieves something you secretly long for. Or maybe it's the quiet fear of failure that leads you to procrastinate, to self-sabotage, to stay safe in your comfort zone. What you may not realize is that none of this is accidental. There is a hidden force operating beneath your awareness, one that shapes your behavior, your decisions, and even your identity. Carl Jung called it the shadow. It's the part of your psyche where you've buried everything you didn't want to face. Your flaws, desires, fears, embarrassments, and all the emotions you were told not to feel. From the moment you were a child, you were taught, directly or indirectly, that certain parts of yourself were unacceptable. You heard things like, "Stop crying," "Don't be so sensitive," "Don't get angry," "Be a good girl," "Be a good boy," "Don't be selfish," "Always share." And so you learn to hide, to suppress, to contort your nature in order to be accepted. But what happens to all those parts of you that you rejected? They don't disappear. They descend into the unconscious. They form your shadow, and they continue to act in your life, whether you acknowledge them or not. This is why you explode in rage at someone you care about, why you push away love and then wonder why you're alone, why you judge others harshly, not realizing you're projecting the very traits you haven't come to terms with in yourself. It's why you fail on purpose, just to protect yourself from the pain of truly trying. It's why you convince yourself that you were never good enough to begin with. Jung said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. If you don't confront your shadow, it will continue pulling strings in the background, while you believe life is just a string of bad luck or coincidence. But if you dare to look within, if you're willing to face what you've long avoided, then something extraordinary happens. The shadow doesn't just stop controlling you. It becomes your power. Yes, the very parts of yourself that you were taught to be ashamed of can become the foundation of your strength, your clarity, your purpose. That's what this video is about. It won't be comfortable. It won't be easy. But it will be necessary if you truly want to break the loop of self-sabotage and reclaim authorship over your own life. Let's begin. What Carl Jung called the shadow is not some abstract, distant idea. It's a living force within you, shaping your thoughts, emotions, and behaviors from the hidden corners of your unconscious. It's where you've stored all the feelings, desires, and impulses that society once told you were too much, wrong, or unacceptable. And though you may have buried them to be loved or accepted, they never truly disappeared. They simply went underground. That discomfort you feel around someone confident and outspoken, it might be your repressed desire to speak up, to shine, silently reminding you that you've silenced yourself for too long. That intense criticism you hurl at someone seeking attention. It may not be about them at all. It might stem from your own buried need to be seen, a need you long ago decided was shameful or selfish. That subtle envy when someone else succeeds. Maybe it's your own ambition, the one you learned to suppress when someone once told you that wanting more made you arrogant. You move through life like an iceberg. People see the tip, the curated personality, the polite mask, the acceptable self. But the bulk of who you are, your real self, remains submerged, hidden, not just from the world, but even from you. And here's the danger. What is hidden is not neutral. The more you deny it, the more power it gains. Your shadow doesn't wait patiently in the background. It manifests in irrational fears, in inexplicable resentment, in cycles that repeat, no matter how desperately you try to escape. The question is not, do I have a shadow? You do. The real question is, how much control does it have over you? Because when you don't bring it to light, it manipulates your choices from the dark. It steers your life while letting you believe you're in control. How? Subtly, quietly, through the back doors of your mind. You think you're choosing freely, but you're reacting to old wounds. Wounds you've forgotten how to recognize. One of the shadow's most powerful tactics is projection. Have you ever felt a strong dislike for someone without understanding why? Have you ever judged someone intensely for something that, if you're honest, might live within you too? You were likely projecting. For example, someone who's repressed their own ambition might feel contempt for others chasing success. Someone uncomfortable with their own assertiveness might label bold people as rude or aggressive. Rather than owning these buried traits, you cast them onto others and attack what you don't want to see in yourself. So another sneaky trick of the shadow is self-sabotage. It whispers in your ear just when you're about to grow. You're not ready. You're not good enough. You'll fail anyway, so why bother? So you procrastinate. You give up too soon. You choose the wrong path, again, not because you're weak, but because a hidden part of you fears success more than failure. Because success means change, and change threatens the comfort of what's familiar, even if what's familiar is your own pain. And the shadow doesn't stop with you. It poisons your relationships too. Ever notice how some people keep attracting the same kind of partner, the same hurt, the same heartbreak? That's no accident. It's the shadow in action. There's a reason why some people always end up with toxic partners, why destructive friendships seem to follow them no matter where they go. It's not just bad luck. It's the shadow at work. Without realizing it, you project your deepest wounds into the world, and then, like a magnet, you unconsciously attract people and situations that reinforce the very pain you've been trying to escape. If your shadow is filled with rejection, you'll feel drawn to people who make you feel unwanted. If you carry insecurity deep within you, you'll connect with those who make you question your worth again and again. This isn't coincidence. It's a pattern. And the scariest part, you don't even notice it happening because the shadow doesn't just influence you. Sometimes it becomes you. You begin to identify with the very pain that's been haunting you. You start to believe the story it tells. That's just who I am. I've always been anxious. I guess I'm not the type who finds love. I'm just not lucky. But none of this is true. What's true is this. You are living under the spell of a hidden part of yourself that you've never confronted. And if that part remains in the dark, It will shape your life in silence. So the real question is, how can you tell when your shadow is in control? What are the unmistakable signs that this buried force is making your choices for you? In the next section, we'll dive into these signs. And once you recognize them, you'll no longer be able to pretend that the shadow doesn't exist. Let's begin. If your life feels stuck, like you're living the same scenes with different people, like your emotions keep cycling through frustration, anxiety, shame, or anger, there's a strong chance your shadow is in charge. And the first sign is this: projection. Have you ever met someone who just triggers you? Someone whose mere presence irritates you far more than it should? This isn't about them. It's about you. Your shadow makes you see in others what you deny in yourself. If you were taught that seeking attention is bad, you might despise those who confidently express themselves. If you were taught to suppress anger, you'll recoil from people who are direct, blunt, or assertive. You'll label them as arrogant, rude, selfish, when in reality they are simply mirroring back a part of you that you were taught to bury. Another undeniable symptom of shadow control: self-sabotage. You've likely felt it. You're finally making progress. You're close to achieving a goal. And then suddenly, you make a strange choice. You pull away. You quit. It feels like everything collapsed by accident. But deep down, you know it wasn't. The truth: your shadow is terrified of growth because growth means change, and change threatens the identity you built around being small, undeserving, or unseen. If someone once convinced you that success was not meant for you, that love is conditional, that happiness has a price, those beliefs are still echoing inside your unconscious, and they will quietly guide you to fail before you even begin. There's one more powerful sign that your shadow is leading the way: a repeated attraction to toxic relationships. No matter how much you try to choose better, you find yourself drawn back to people who hurt, belittle, or neglect you. And that's not because you're broken. It's because your shadow has not been healed. And until it is, it will always seek familiarity, even if that familiarity is pain. You may think it's just bad luck, that you simply attract the wrong kind of people, those who devalue you, ignore you, use you, and leave you feeling hollow. But this is not coincidence. There's something inside you that seeks out this dynamic again and again without your awareness. If you were rejected as a child, your shadow may lead you to repeat that rejection in adulthood, seeking it, even craving it, as if trying to resolve a wound by reopening it. If you were taught to repress your anger, you may be drawn to people who constantly test your limits, who drain your patience, because your shadow has found a twisted way to let that suppressed energy out indirectly and destructively. But one of the clearest signs that your shadow is silently controlling you is the irrational fear of judgment. Are you constantly afraid of being criticized? Do you avoid attention, keep your opinions quiet, or feel terrified that others might find you ridiculous? That fear isn't just about the present. It's not about this moment. It's the echo of your past. An old shame that was never processed, only buried. Maybe you were once punished for making mistakes. Maybe you were mocked for speaking your truth. So now, without realizing it, you build your life around the fear of being seen as wrong. You become overly cautious. You avoid taking risks. You try to please everyone, but lose yourself in the process. And yet, this fear, This overwhelming anxiety about being judged comes not from who you are today, but from who you were forced to become. But perhaps the cruelest symptom of all is the emptiness, that hollow feeling that something essential is missing, even when your life looks fine on the outside. Have you ever looked around and thought, why do I still feel unsatisfied? Why do I feel incomplete, even though I have everything I thought I wanted? That's not a flaw. It's a message. It's the voice of the parts of yourself you amputated just to be accepted. Your passions, your authenticity, your boldness, your desires, all buried, all silenced, so you could fit into a mold someone else created for you. And now, what you feel is the weight of that absence, a silent grief for the self you left behind. But here's the truth. This is not the end. Recognizing your shadow is not a sign of failure. It is the beginning of liberation. The real danger isn't having a shadow. We all do. The real danger is pretending it isn't there. So now the question becomes, what happens if you continue to ignore it? What is the cost of living in denial? In the next section, we will explore the consequences, because ignoring your shadow may not just hold you back. It might be destroying your life. Here's what you need to know. The shadow you refuse to face does not fade. It grows stronger in silence. It gains weight, power, and momentum with every year that you push it deeper down. And eventually, it explodes. You might spend years pretending you're fine, smiling, functioning, surviving. But there will come a moment when all that was buried demands to be seen. If you repress your anger, it may erupt in uncontrollable rage at exactly the wrong moment, damaging relationships, careers, opportunities. They may manifest in self-sabotage, in addictions, compulsions, or quiet, corrosive despair. If you never confront your traumas, they may rise up in the form of chronic anxiety, panic attacks, or even physical illness that medicine can't explain. But don't think the consequences are just internal. They shape your entire reality. Deny your fear of abandonment, and you may cling to toxic relationships just to avoid loneliness. Reject your own ambition, and you may keep yourself small professionally, telling yourself that success isn't meant for people like you. Suppress your desires, and you may drift through life with a constant feeling of dissatisfaction, never quite knowing why. And yet, this isn't your destiny. But if you ignore the shadow, you will live as if it is. Worst of all, if you don't integrate your shadow, it may eventually take over your entire life. Have you ever met someone who seems completely consumed by bitterness, who walks through the world carrying silent rage, always on guard, always ready to attack? Someone who blames others for everything, yet seems unable to change their own patterns. These people weren't born this way. They are not inherently angry or paranoid. What happened is simple but devastating. They repressed their pain for so long, ignored their wounds for so many years, that their shadow became their dominant self. No longer in the background, it began making decisions for them. In their relationships, their behavior, even their identity. And the result? A life locked in a cycle of fear, resentment, and self-sabotage. But perhaps the most terrifying consequence is what psychologists call depersonalization, a haunting feeling of being a stranger within your own skin, as if you're alive, but not really you, as if you're watching your life unfold from outside yourself, disconnected from who you truly are. This happens when, in the effort to be good, you cut away everything that seems dark. You try to eliminate all the anger, all the jealousy, all the impulses you've been taught to fear. But in doing so, you amputate essential parts of your soul. And over time, this emotional dismemberment leads to a profound, nagging emptiness, a sense that something is missing, but you can't name what it is. So then comes the inevitable question: how do you break free? How do you stop being the victim of your own shadow and begin the journey of integrating it consciously, powerfully, and with purpose? In the next part, you'll learn how to stop running from your darkness and instead turn it into your greatest source of strength. Because the goal isn't to destroy the shadow. That's not even possible. As Carl Jung said, the shadow is not your enemy. In fact, it holds essential energies that you've buried but desperately need: anger, assertiveness, passion, ambition. These are not flaws. They are raw power waiting to be reclaimed. The real danger was never the shadow itself. The real danger was denying it. So what's the first step? Recognition. Start by becoming aware of your emotional triggers. Whenever someone provokes a strong reaction in you, pause. Before blaming the other person, ask yourself, what does this say about me? If someone's arrogance irritates you, could it be that they express a confidence you've been taught to repress? If you judge someone who seeks success, is there a part of you that wants the same, but has been buried under guilt or fear? Your triggers are not random. They are maps to your unconscious wounds. The second step is this: allow yourself to feel what you've been taught to deny. If you've spent your life pretending not to feel anger, now is the time to sit with it, not to lash out, but to acknowledge it without fear. Say it to yourself. Yes, I feel angry. Yes, I feel envy. Yes, I am afraid, and that's okay. These feelings are not the enemy. Your resistance to them is. The shadow only controls you when you pretend it isn't there. But when you face it directly, it loses its grip. One powerful tool for this process is reflective writing. Take a notebook and write uncensored from the soul. Ask yourself, what parts of myself do I reject? What behaviors in others do I harshly criticize? What am I most afraid others will discover about me? The answers may be uncomfortable, but writing them down is an act of liberation, because once your shadow has a name, it begins to lose its power. Another profound method is inner dialogue and visualization. Jung suggested speaking to your shadow as if it were a separate being. It may sound strange, but it works, because it allows you to create awareness of something you've spent a lifetime ignoring. Close your eyes. Imagine this hidden part of you. What does it look like? What does it want to say? You may be surprised by the answers. They are not here to destroy you. They are here to make you whole. Often, when we finally give voice to our shadow, we realize something surprising. It is not a monster. It is not a threat. It is simply a forgotten part of ourselves, a part that was buried, silenced, and left behind in the rush to be good. And more than anything, it just wants to be acknowledged. Integrating your shadow is not a one-time event. It's not something you check off a list. It is a lifelong journey, one that demands courage, radical honesty, and the willingness to walk into your own darkness, not to get lost, but to reclaim the parts of you that were exiled. Here's what truly matters. Your darkness does not have to be your enemy. That repressed anger, it can be transformed into strength. That fear you carry, it can evolve into deep wisdom. Your forbidden desires, they can become creative power. Everything you've denied in yourself can be transmuted into fuel for your personal growth. But now that you know this, one final question must be asked. Why is this so rare? Why do so few people ever walk this path of inner integration? And why, if you do choose it, will you become the exception? Let's be honest. At this point in your journey, you already understand that the shadow lives in you. It always has. Whether you choose to face it or deny it won't change its presence, but it will determine your fate. You have two options now. You can keep pretending your fears, your insecurities, your sabotaging thoughts don't affect your life. Or you can make a different choice, a choice most people never make. You can look within. You can take responsibility. You can reclaim control of your own psyche. But before you go further, you need to accept one sobering truth. Most people will never do this work. Most will remain stuck in the same toxic cycles. They'll relive the same mistakes. They'll keep blaming others, blaming fate, blaming society, blaming their childhood, while refusing to face themselves. They'll feed resentment, project their pain, and stay trapped in illusions because illusions feel safer than truth. But you're different. If you've made it this far, if you've listened to every part of this journey, then something inside you is awake. Something inside you knows that transformation is no longer optional. You're tired of being a prisoner to forces you don't understand. Tired of feeling like your life is run by unconscious patterns you can't escape. And that means you're ready. Ready to do the inner work. Ready to face your shadow. Ready to become whole. But don't be fooled. This path is not easy. To see your shadow is to give up the comfort of believing you already know yourself. It means confronting wounds from the past, admitting truths you've avoided, owning the role you've played in the pain you now want to escape. It's uncomfortable, but it's also the only path to true liberation. So now I ask you directly, what will you do with this? Will you walk away from this video nodding in agreement, only to return to the same habits tomorrow? Or will you take action? Will you put this knowledge into practice? If this video struck a chord, then don't let that energy fade. Write in the comments. What part of your shadow have you been ignoring? Have you noticed any recurring patterns in your life that now make sense? Your comment is not just a reply. It is a declaration, a public commitment to your own awakening. And whatever you do, don't stop here. The next video continues this journey into another essential part of your transformation. If you're truly serious about evolving, you cannot afford to skip it. So keep watching, because the next piece may be the key you've been missing all along. You've started something today. Now finish it.